So I get the pleasure of Groundwork and all of us today get the pleasure of delivering the final award of the awards of the day, the Belief in Every Child Award. And we are lucky enough to have Governor Mike DeWine and First Lady Fran DeWine with us today, who I'm going to invite along up on the stage alongside Shannon Jones, who's going to give the introduction and remarks around this award. So first, let me just do a quick introduction of Shannon, and she can come up here alongside the governor and the First Lady. So Shannon is the former leader of Groundwork Ohio. Many of you know her. She's a sitting Warren County Commissioner. She is the principal of On Key Strategies and had the experience of working with Governor DeWine in his his U.S. Senate term, and also continues to sit on the board of the Governor's Imagination Library that is chaired by our First Lady, Fran DeWine. So Shannon. Great.
Thank you to Groundwork for inviting me to present this award. It's a great honor. So I'm grateful to be here on behalf of Groundwork Ohio to really recognize the leadership of Governor Mike DeWine and First Lady Fran DeWine. Now, years ago, as Lynn mentioned, I had the great honor to work for the governor when he served in the United States Senate. Seeing his and Mrs. DeWine's commitment to children and families up close and personal inspired me in my own public service, first as an Ohio legislator and now as a county commissioner. It is because of their example, that their steady witness, and that their belief in government should always be judged by how it treats its youngest citizens, that I chose to place children and families at the center of my work. Now, I don't want to make today about me, but I do believe that part of their legacy includes something that deserves mentioning. They have inspired countless public servants, myself among them, to lead with compassion, to focus on children and families, and to see every policy decision through the eyes of a child. That ripple effect of their leadership is one of the many reasons we honor them today. For the DeWines, that passion begins with family. They are the proud parents of 8 children, grandparents of 28, and now great-grandparents as well. A family that embodies the stability and love they have worked so tirelessly to secure for every child in Ohio. Their partnership, grounded in faith and service, has guided decades of leadership anchored in one simple conviction: every child matters. In the U.S. Senate, Governor DeWine was one of Congress's most consistent champions for children's health and safety, shaping laws that protected children from abuse and neglect, expanded adoption and foster care supports, strengthened missing child investigations, and improved the safety of the very medicines our children take. He co-chaired the Senate Caucus on Missing and Exploited Children, authored key provisions of the Adoption and Safe Families Act, and help establish the National Poison Control Hotline. These were not incremental acts. They were enduring commitments to the well-being of children. That same clarity of purpose carried forward into the governor's office. From day one, Governor and Mrs. DeWine placed children and families at the very heart of their administration. The creation of the Ohio Department of Children and Youth was not a bureaucratic reshuffle. It was a moral statement that children will remain Ohio's highest priority. Under their leadership, Ohio has expanded early learning, strengthened home visiting and foster and kinship supports, invested in high-quality childcare, and confronted infant mortality with data, determination, and heart. And yet, their compassion has never stopped at our state's or our nation's borders. In memory of their daughter, Becky, the DeWines founded the Becky DeWine School in Haiti, bringing education, meals, and hope to children in one of the poorest neighborhoods in the world. I witnessed their commitment firsthand. The fundraisers, there were a lot of fundraisers. The trips, the constant calls to see those children not as distant strangers, but as our responsibility. I can still remember saving hundreds of mini bars of soap from hotel stays and gathering little cars and toys for Christmas because they were determined that every child would see the face of Christ at Christmas time. As Governor DeWine once said, quote, Our mission is not to save Haiti. That's beyond us. But we can affect one child at a time. We provide an opportunity for success. First Lady DeWine's vision for early childhood literacy is equally powerful. Through her leadership, the Dolly Parton Imagination Library of Ohio was created and now serves children in all 88 counties. And as of this spring, more than 20 million books have been mailed to young Ohioans. Because of her vision, passion, and understanding that education and the love of learning are the keys to lifelong success, every child in Ohio can now begin their journey surrounded by stories, imagination, and possibility. That belief that every child deserves a fighting chance, a strong start, and the love of family to see them through is what unites all of their work. Groundwork Ohio exists to champion that very idea, that when we invest early, when we lead with compassion, and when we stay focused on what truly matters, we can change lives across generations. No two people have embodied that belief more fully than Governor Mike DeWine and First Lady Fran DeWine. Governor, First Lady, your example has inspired me and so many others to serve. Your work in Washington helped protect children's health and safety. Your work in Ohio is transforming how we support families from the very beginning. And your work in Haiti reminds us that every child matters, whether in Portsmouth, Port Clinton, or Port-au-Prince. On behalf of Groundwork Ohio, with deep gratitude for your lifetime of doing what's right for kids, it is my honor to present you with the Belief in Every Child Award in recognition of your extraordinary leadership, lifelong devotion of children and families, and unwavering faith that every child, everywhere, deserves a chance to thrive. Please join me in recognizing the leadership of Governor Mike DeWine and First Lady Fran DeWine.
Good afternoon. Microphones should be on. Very good. Did I grab the wrong one? Oh, very good.
Oh, I grabbed Fran.
You got it? All right, very good. Well, congratulations again, Governor and First Lady. We're really excited to have you here with us today and spend our time hearing and learning from you to continue our learning throughout today. So we have a question to start us off for both of you. You've both been tireless champions for Ohio's youngest children, as Shannon shared and all of us share here in this room. What does receiving this award mean to you in this moment in your service?
Well, I'll start. First of all, thank you to Groundwork. Coming from Groundwork, it means a lot. I don't have to tell you all, but this is the organization in the state of Ohio that is focused every single day on children. And you have a real influence, and you have the ability to reach the state legislators. You have the ability to reach the public. You do a very, very good job. So coming from this organization, it means a lot. We're very, very grateful.
Yeah, we're very grateful, and I think that, we take inspiration from you. The nice things that Shannon said, we've taken a lot of inspiration from Shannon over the years, too. So thank you.
Thank you. Governor, you've made bold bipartisan investments in early childhood and maternal and infant health. What has driven your sense of urgency to prioritize these issues over your career and here recently?
Well, children have, one chance to grow up, and it's a relatively small period of time. Fran, I have a couple friends who are in the medical area who tell us that a child born today is likely to live 100 years. So when you think about the investment that we make at a relatively short period of time, that will pay off for many, 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 many years, and will have an impact on their children and their children. So there's nothing that we can do that is more impactful for the future of the state of Ohio or the future of this country than investing in our kids. It's just, but if we miss that opportunity, doesn't mean a ninth grader can't learn to read, but it's tougher, and so it's just we have to invest early. That's what it's about.
Yes, well, our entire mission and our work together as a movement has been to get public policy to keep pace with what we know to be true from your friends, and certainly the research and the anecdote that we have in our field. First Lady, you want to respond to any of the investments that have been made here more recently?
Well, I think, just because Mike and I have 8 children and 28 grandkids, we are just with kids all the time. I actually had a babysitting job with 2 of them just a few hours ago, So, but
Almost didn't make it.
yeah, I wasn't sure I was going to make it back in time. But, we just think about kids all the time. And I think that's what kind of drives us. That's what drives me. Our children actually, our youngest grandchild is about 15 months, and our oldest grandchild will be 32 next week. And so we have a very large range of kids. So we really, we're always looking at kids, and we're always trying to figure out how we can help other kids, how we can help, you just understand kids more when you have so many around.
Thank you. Governor, what lessons have you learned as governor about building support for investments in young children, especially across party lines?
Well, look, I think that, and I know you had some conversation today that, about what the future might bring. Look, I'm an optimist. Fran says anybody with 8 kids by definition is an optimist, but I'm an optimist. And look, if you look what's happened since I've been governor, we've had 4 budgets. Sometimes people will write stories. I understand this about things where there's a disagreement between the governor and the legislature. That's always more interesting to read than when there's an agreement. But you govern through budgets. You govern through budgets, and what you invest in is what you care about and what you think is important. And 4 budgets I presented have been very aggressive in regard to early childhood education, childcare, home visiting programs, the infant mortality challenge that we face. And we have gotten, there's a couple exceptions, but we've gotten 98% of what we've asked from the legislature. And it's been areas where there's been agreement among Democrats and Republicans. Now, it helps to have a governor who's pushing that out there. The governor, the way the budget works is, we present our first budget. We kind of set that out there, and then the legislature, House does what they do, the Senate does what they do, and then finally you go into a conference committee, and we have a little input, and then we end up with a budget. If you look at the things we've asked for with children, I said there's a couple of exceptions that I wish they've gone further, but we've gotten virtually everything we've asked for. And there's no reason that can't continue after I leave office. I mean, there's just no reason that can't continue. It is the best money we spend. It's most important. And look, if you look at where Ohio is today, we're bringing companies into Ohio. We've got a good business climate. Our taxes are reasonable. They're steady. They're predictable. We are situated within a day's drive of Ohio, 60% of the population of the United States, or 60% of the population of Canada you can reach. We've got an abundance of water. Some states don't have it. We've been able to keep our infrastructure up. We have good infrastructure. So we have all these things going for us, and we're bringing companies in. But what's the final question, the final hurdle we have to go over when we negotiate with a company? Are you coming to Ohio? Or take a company that's already in Ohio, and are you going to expand in Ohio, or are they going to go someplace else to expand? The final question, the final hurdle always is, do you have the people? Do you have the skill sets? You know, it goes all the way, skill sets from all kinds of different levels. So it comes back to people. And so, you know, bringing people into Ohio, keeping our people in Ohio, educating them, and making sure that every Ohioan can live up to their God-given potential. That happens to be important. That's what a parent wants. That's what a grandparent wants. But it's also, if you look at all of us collectively, that's what's best for all of us. You know, when a young person graduates from high school, and if they don't have a pathway and don't figure out a pathway, and they kind of struggle, that's not good. Now, kids can change pathways. Fran would tell you, I've changed mine how many times? Yeah.
I thought I married a school teacher.
We got married between our second and third year at Miami University, and I thought I was going to be a school teacher. So, and still time. Yeah, still time. Maybe. But it's all about getting Ohioans to live up to their full potential. That's what's the future of the state. That's where they're going to succeed or we're not going to succeed. We're going to do well. We're not going to do well. And it's never right that you'd lose someone who doesn't live up to their potential and kind of wanders and does. But we can't afford that today. Everybody has to live up to their full potential. So it's the coming together of what you want personally, what you want for your family, and what really is in the best interest of the state. And I think we have to talk about it in that way. You know, look at what the Chamber of Commerce has done in the state of Ohio. They get it in regard to child care. They fully understand that. So you can have a lot of people coming together. And so I am optimistic, cautiously, but optimistic about our ability to keep this going. That's what we have to do. We have to keep it going after I leave office. And we ought to be able to do that.
Well, thank you. I commit groundwork and all of these brilliant people in this room to figuring out how to build upon all of the progress we've made and continue that important work. As we do so, as you enter the final 15 months of your governorship, what unfinished work still weighs on your mind?
Well, I get questions all the time. What are you going to do when you leave office? And I honestly tell them I haven't thought a whole lot about it because we've got a lot to do before I leave office. One example, part of what we have to do is to be able to quantify and explain some of the things that we've done and what progress we've made. So one example, something we are just now starting. Fran and I had a ophthalmologist come to see us like 2 years ago, and we sat down in the governor's residence, and she went through the statistics, and she said to us, you know, in Ohio, every school child, grade school, is supposed to be screened for eyesight. And then they tell the child and the child's parents, you need to get an eye exam or you don't. But of those who are identified, red flag, you need an eye exam, only about a fourth of those actually get the eye exam. So that means we have 3/4 of these kids who've been identified as very, very likely great potential, needing help, and they don't get that help. So we came up with a program, and wasn't funded as fully as I wanted, but a program to deal with that. And so before that, I actually put a working group together and said, let's go figure this out. What will it take so that every child who's red flagged, if they need an eye exam, actually gets the eye exam, and then if they need glasses, actually gets the glasses. The good news is there are models out there. There are nonprofit groups that are doing this different spots over the state of Ohio. And so we are putting together a program to do that. And I'm hoping in the 14, 15 months we have left that we will be able to have data showing how we change the outcomes. And look, this goes back to Fran's passion about reading, my passion about reading, what Fran's done with the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, what we've done with the science of reading. All of that doesn't work too well if a kid can't see very well. So part of this is being able to demonstrate what we have done and the money that's invested actually does, in fact, bring results. One other area that I'll just mention, and that is mental health. We are trying to do something that's never been done before, and that is actually build a system in the state of Ohio so that no matter where you live, the most rural area, the cities, doesn't matter, that you and your family can get the help that you need. We now have something that is moving forward. It's going to be in place part of the state. Won't be long until it's in place every place in the state. Family who has a child under 20, and that child is having a mental health crisis, you pick up the phone, you dial the number, and no matter where you live in the state of Ohio, there'll be somebody at your door within 60 minutes. That we are close to having that. We will have that completed by the time I leave office, and that again is part of what we just have to continue to build this system out. I mean, John Kennedy talked about it when he signed the Community Mental Health Act, last bill I think he signed before he was assassinated. He said the goal is no matter where you live in this country, you should have access to mental health care. We've never really built that the way we should, but we can do that in Ohio. We can lead in Ohio, and so that work has to continue.
You have lots of advocates who've been taking notes about strategies and tactics and how they inform and influence their policymakers. In your example, can you talk a little bit or give some advice to the advocates in the room? It's not every day that someone maybe gets to arrive at the governor's residence, like the ophthalmologist you gave the example of, but how are you listening, or what information do you want to hear from advocates? How can they best inform policymakers?
Well, I think if you're talking about advocating for any issue, don't underestimate the personal relationship. I mean, if you don't know your state senator, and if you don't know your state representative, you need to get to know them. They're going to pay attention to somebody who lives in their district. And that relationship, and it's just human nature. People we know we trust more, people we know we listen to more, and just building that relationship, building that trust, I think is really the absolute key to it. And it's one person at a time. It's one legislator at a time. So, what Groundwork is doing is kind of the aerial. What you're doing is kind of the groundwork. And on the ground, doing it individual legislator to legislator. And look, if you look at the polling, and I would say if you looked at the results that we've had out of 4 budgets, you've got legislators who will do that. They will follow that. You have to give them the facts. It's like any other issue. Give them the facts. Give them what you think is important, and convey that.
Mrs. DeWine, your leadership has been deeply personal and family-oriented, from promoting literacy and the Dolly Parton Imagination Library to Ohio families. What inspired you to take on this priority of early childhood literacy during your time as First Lady?
Well, I think I've always known how important early reading was. At one point in my life, I was going to be a home ec teacher, and home ec isn't just cooking and sewing. It's more teaching, the importance of early learning, and so reading to your children. I loved my children's literature, my kitty lit class. It was so important. I loved. Um, just in food, it's not just teaching someone how to cook, it's understanding nutrition. So these are things that I always knew that I always loved to do. That was my kind of my background. But I knew how important it was that to teach your kids to read to them as soon as they're born. And so I happened to be one day, I was with two of my grandkids when their mail came, and there were two books in the mail, and they were wrapped in plastic, and it was like they were so excited they pulled them out, and tore that plastic off. Read to me, Grandma. And I saw, what I saw was these are children who had books, but that joy and that excitement of getting that book in the mail that's addressed to you, your book. And it was, it really made a big impression on me. So this was when Mike was actually running for governor, so I had to find out about the program, and I realized that it was actually through our county library, Greene County Library, signed up kids, and it was available in pockets of Ohio, but not all of Ohio. And so I just thought at that moment, I said, we can do this, I don't think there's any reason why we can't make it so that every single child, no matter where they live in Ohio, they should be able to get these books. So these books are absolutely free. But it's really important, I think, to get the books early. And so we know that their brains are developing so quickly. They have more neurons when they're born than any time in their life. And so, they're looking for something to do. So we've just initiated about 2 months ago a special thing. So now, you can sign up. We've always made it so you can sign up online, ohioimaginationlibrary.org, or you can go to your local library, they'll sign you up. But now, if a woman is having a baby, at the hospital, when they have to fill out all their paperwork for their birth certificate, the next page is one simple check that you can check to sign up for the free books, the Dolly Parton Imagination Library books. So, and I like to kind of tell mothers this ahead of time too, so that they're kind of ready for that when they get to the hospital when they have that baby, instead of it being buried in all the stuff they have to take home and read, that they'll sign up right away. And that means they'll get 60 books before those kids turn 5 years old. So in August was our first month. We signed up, I think, about 800 kids. In September, we signed up about over 4,000 kids. So we're anxious to see what this month's going to bring. So we're working on it. So anyway, we're pretty excited about that.
How many total?
So we have about 405,000 kids that are getting the books right now. And you're graduating them out your new ones are being born. 5-year-olds are graduating out. But we've actually mailed out 23 million books in Ohio since we went statewide. So it just happens to be more than any other state. We have more than any other state signed up for the book. So we're real proud of that. So thank you.
Congratulations, and there's some flyers if folks want to take them with them outside if you haven't signed up, or if you want to share some with your families to sign up. Mrs. DeWine, you've traveled across Ohio meeting families, professionals, educators, and caregivers. Can you share just a couple of stories with us? We all have those stories that stick in our mind, and we constantly think of that face. What are a couple of those for you?
Well, I love reading to the kids, and usually, because I mostly read to preschoolers, I love reading The Very Hungry Caterpillar, and so that's kind of a fun thing. And we actually bought a bunch of just the nice hardbound copies, so that whenever we read to kids, we can give them their own hardbound copy to take home. But I think the most exciting thing is when Mike and I are out, if we're going to county fairs or anywhere, just out in public, and usually if Mike sees someone pushing a stroller, he'll stop them. Now, are your kids signed up for the Imagination Libraries? He's doing his
Fails
part.
too. So that's-
But the exciting thing is that almost always they say yes. They say yes, and then they just sort of start beaming, and they tell us about their new bedtime ritual or bath time ritual and how many books they read before the kids go to bed. And you see that it's not just the kids are getting read to, it's that you're changing the way the parents think about reading to their kids. And I think that's been the most exciting thing for me, just seeing how the parents are just changing. We know that during this time when there's so many devices for kids, that we need to have them touching books and turning pages and understanding that, we're now another one. And that letters make words, words make stories. And so just all of those things, putting that all together, to get ready when they start school. And then, we have the science of reading when they start school. We know if they learn to read, they're going to succeed. And so that's just also important.
Thank you. Governor, are there any stories that stick out for you or faces of a certain child or family that continue to come up for you in your work?
Well, Fran, I'm going to ask Fran to tell two stories. You can tell them the correction you got from the little boy on the hungry caterpillar.
Well, I've read that book a million times, and I read it one day at a library, and a little boy, and he's probably about 4 or 5. When I finished, he said, there's a mistake in the book. And I said, really? This is a 50-year-old book. Everybody knows Eric Carle's book. And he said, yes. He said, it's not, butterflies do not make cocoons. Moths do cocoons. And so it should be a pupae or a chrysalis. And so I got in the car and I pulled out my phone and I quickly Googled it, and he was right. And so now I say, the very hungry caterpillar made a cocoon or a chrysalis around himself, and so that was his little house that he lived in for a couple of months. So anyway,
So you all can go home and take your copy out and change it. Tell them, Fran and I went around when we asked the legislature to require that the science of reading be the way every child was taught in a classroom. And that's something, we don't require a lot from the state. We let schools they're locally controlled. But this was so important that we knew that it's very important if children are going to learn to read. As I said at the time, as a former county prosecuting attorney, the jury has returned on this. We have a verdict. And the verdict is science of reading, or basically the sounding out of words, the phonics. And so we were into hundreds of classrooms. And what we did is we went to the classrooms, we went to the schools where they had switched over before, because we wanted to see what the results were. And we wanted to talk to the teachers. And tell them about some of the teachers' reactions, because the teachers told us.
Well, the classrooms were very exciting because it was usually dynamic teachers who were, it was a very fast-paced thing, and it was a little bit like rap, and they were just really having fun. And no matter who the teacher picked in the group, so many times we see, the smartest one has their hand up, and they're the ones that are called, but no matter who was picked, they knew the answer. And that was really cool for me to see how they just knew the answer. But as we would walk out, the teachers, some of these teachers who've been teaching, 20 years said how remorseful they were, that all these years they had been teaching kids the wrong way, and they could see it now. And, they said so many times they would work so hard, they would try so hard, and there was still a good percentage of kids that they weren't getting through to. And once they changed the science of reading, it made all the difference. And so that was really exciting for us to hear and for us to see the process, and knowing that it's really going to help a lot of kids. It's going to especially help kids with dyslexia and older kids that have just had so much trouble learning to read.
Yeah, and we had one example. I think Fran was very moved by, and I was too. This young man who was in high school and who really didn't learn to read, I guess, until what, 9th grade or something.
Well, they told him he would never learn to read. Just don't worry about it. You can get a job.
People were just telling him, don't worry
it.
about it. He never was going to read.
And he had an intervention specialist who worked with him and told him that his brain was like a very dense forest, and that you really, that there are ways to get through it. And as he told his story about learning to read, he was crying. His intervention specialist was crying. We were all crying to see this really bright young man who was going to have a future of never being able to learn to read, and just knowing the possibility.
But it wasn't until they got the interventionist taught him by the science of reading, and then it just kicked in for him. And so, that you talk about a sense of urgency. It just has to be a sense of urgency. We still have some of the schools who have some of the teachers who have not switched over yet. And, we're supplying money for them to be trained. But, what I think about all the time is the classrooms where that's still not occurring. And that child is growing up, and, one chance to grow up. And so we gotta get them. So there's got to be a real sense of urgency for what we do. And of course, you all have that, or you wouldn't be here. But that's just so important, I think.
We talked a little bit, or you mentioned about the progress in your term, and also in the recent state budget. And I just want to thank, on behalf of our network, the important work of the Department of Children and Youth and Director Wente's leadership, and just how accessible she has been to all of us. Thank you very much. And I wonder if you can share a little bit. You guys have been so committed to making progress on infant and maternal mortality. And many of us know this to be such a wicked problem, as something it's referred to. Can you share kind of some of your observations and learnings as you guys are digging into solutions?
Sure. Let me first say something about Kara and about the new department. This was just not as Shannon said, this is not just kind of moving around the chairs and changing the bureaucracy. We wanted one department where everybody, when they woke up in the morning, they're focused on one thing, that's kids. And Kara can tell you the numbers, but I think she pulled people out of 6 or 7 different departments. And these are people who had never worked together. And so sometimes with the same kids. And magic happened when they came together in the same building, in the same rooms, and they can go back and forth. And of course, Kara's a very, very strong leader. One of the things that I tasked Kara with, and the department with, is just continuing to focus on maternal health and infant mortality. And we're doing better than we were. Our numbers are better. We're saving lives. More babies are surviving, but we know we have a ways to go. And it's just unacceptable in this country that we still have areas where the rate is just so high. It's just totally unacceptable. And we really now know what works. And so, again, with the home visiting programs, those work. We've seen that work. We know it works. We just have to continue to push those out as fast as we can.
Thank you for many of the community members that are helping drive those solutions are here today. So thank you for your commitment in that space as well. The theme of today's institute has been writing the next chapter. I think so many of us came with lots of questions. We don't have all the answers, but we've been doing a lot of learning together today. And like I said before, we're going to be the ones to be writing the next chapter, and we're committed to that. If you could write a message for the next page of Ohio's story for our young children,
I don't need it anyway. No, it's kids are our future. I mean, this is our future, and the next chapter should be, take it to a different level. And we've got to have more kids who can read. We've got to have fewer babies who are dying before their first birthday. We've got to have more moms who are getting the medical care they need early on in the pregnancy. I mean, we know what has to be done. And we can do these things. We can do it. And I think we have to be optimistic. It's not like we have to go invent some things. We at this point now know a lot more than we knew 20 years ago or 30 years ago, and we just have to overcome those challenges. But we can do it. We have to be optimistic. We have to look to the future and say, look, we can make a difference for that child. And again, I kind of look at it, and Fran and I look at it, I think, as whether we're in Haiti and looking at a child there in extreme poverty, whether we're talking with a child here, in a kindergarten classroom, we want for those kids what we want for every one of our grandkids. It's kind of simple. And that's, I think that's how we all have to look at children. And I know you all do. That's why you're here. But look at them. That could be my child. That, could be my grandchild. We need to help them.
Ms. DeWine, what's your vision, or how would you write the next chapter of the story for young children in Ohio?
Well, mine's pretty much what Mike says, and just knowing what we can do with books, and just helping to educate mothers on being good mothers, I think is all part of what we what kind of part of my mission is. Mothers and fathers, but particularly the moms, I identify with.
Yes,
So, so just to helping everyone be better parents is I think is what I see, what I need to do.
One of the things that we saw as we've traveled to Haiti, and we started going down there when I was in the U.S. Senate, almost by chance, and then we just continued to go down there. But what Fran would say is that, it doesn't matter where a mother is in the world, that mother, with very, very few exceptions, is trying to do the best she can for that child.
I've seen mothers that didn't have enough food for their children, and they were actually mixing mud and water, and it wasn't clean water, together, and making mud pies and letting them dry in the sun, and then giving them to their children when they had no food to give them, just because they needed something to put in their mouth. But those moms, I got to talk to a lot of those moms, and the priests that we were working with, built schools in these areas, and they got a free meal a day, and just watching them build up their families, and is just very inspiring. But moms want their children to be healthy. They want their children to be educated. They want the same things that we do. And even if they live in the poorest place in the country, they want the same things that we do. And with a little help, we can help them all.
Well, I would just ask if you have any parting words as we sort of close out this conversation. I don't know, lasting, whether it's parenting advice, policy advice that you would want to send off our group with here at the end of the day.
No parenting advice.
All right. That was my selfish question. I need a little help.
No, thank you.
Let your kids cook in the kitchen, even if they make a mess. That's my parenting advice.
Okay.
We thank you all very much, and thank you for what you do every day. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Well, thank you, Governor. Thank you, Mrs. DeWine.